Since the global lockdown began, scenes like this have become more and more common. It's as if people forgot how to be in nature, how to be in the woods. In this story, we learn about Mother Elder and how she taught the people how to be in the woods again.
Hey there, welcome to We Be Kids. Now many sunrises and many sunsets ago, in a place not far away from where you are sat right now, there was a huge forest. A forest full of pine trees that grew in straight lines, packed very close together. And in the middle of this big pine forest, there was an opening, a glade. And in this glade were trees of all kinds. There were beech and oak and ash and elm. But right in the middle of them all was a big, beautiful elder tree. And on beautiful nights when the moon would shine bright, all the trees used to gather around and listen as the elder tree would tell stories of the forest. The elder tree would tell stories of a time way gone by, when the forest was filled with sound. Not just the sounds of birds and animals and the batting of fairies' wings, but also filled with the sounds of children playing and families gathering. The oak tree in particular loved these stories. The elder would tell of how the children would come and climb in the branches and make dens in the tops of the trees. How they would gather berries and eat and make beautiful drinks. How they would gather leaves and make medicines and gather round and all tell stories together. And when she told these stories, she told them with great excitement and great enthusiasm and great joy. And she always ended by saying that one day people would return to the forest, and all the trees looked forward to that day. And each day, the trees from their spot would look off into the distance, waiting for the people to return. And as they watched, they saw their towns grow bigger and bigger and get closer and closer to the edge of the forest, until they could see the windows of the houses, and they could see young faces peering out of the windows, looking longingly down into the woods. And the elders said one day they will return. And one day they did return. You see, the town that the people lived in became covered with a great grey cloud. An illness came to the homes of the people, an illness like they had never ever seen before. They were told to avoid each other, to stay in their houses, not to hug or greet each other. None of these people had ever known a time like this before, and they didn't know what to do. But the forest called them and told them to return. And at first the people began to walk around the edge of the forest and look in. But as the cloud got thicker and darker, people started to venture into the forest. But it wasn't like before. In the past, when they would come in and eat the berries and collect the sweet nectar, this time they brought their own food, all wrapped up in plastic packaging. They brought their own drinks, all put nicely in little tin cans. And in the past, where they climbed the trees, this time they snapped the trees. They broke their branches. And at the bottom of the trees, on their roots, they built fires. And when they left, behind them, they left their tin cans and their plastic bags and their burnt fires. And the trees were sad. This isn't how people were supposed to come back to the woods, they said. The fairies gathered round. They said, we can't have all this rubbish around. It's too heavy for us to collect. But they tried and they tried to clear up after the people. But the next day, more people came and brought more rubbish and built bigger fires. And the fairies and the elves and the squirrels and the foxes, they tried to clear up. But the next day, they came with more and more. In the end, the animal creatures, they went into the glade and they asked for the help of the trees. They said, this isn't how people were supposed to return to the forest. Look at all the rubbish they're leaving. Look at all the damage they are doing. We need an idea. We need something to happen. Trees, can you help us? And first to speak up was the great oak. The great oak said, I have been watching these people breaking my branches and making fires on my roots. We have to stop them coming to the forest. Let's dig great big pits and catch them and never let them out. And all the other oaks, they waved their branches and rustled their leaves in agreement. But then the beech spoke up and the beech tree said, no. We don't want to catch them. If we catch them, we have to decide what to do with them. Instead, let's play tricks on them. Let's scare them out of the forest so they will never come back. Yes, said all the beech, and they shook their branches and rustled their leaves in agreement. But the mother elder tree in the middle of the glade was listening to this. She said, Oak and beech, I understand what you are saying, but this isn't the way to treat the people. You must remember that deep in their hearts, the people are nature too. They belong in the forest. At the moment, they have a great illness. They are coming here for peace and for wellness and for healing. We can't scare them away. We can't trap them. We just have to remind them how to be in the forest, for the people have forgotten. And the tree said, yes, that is right. We must remind them how they should be in the forest. But how do we do it? And Mother Elder said, this is not going to be a quick fix. It will take one whole year to remind the people how they should be in the forest. We must remind them of our gifts, our fruits and our medicines and our drinks and our stories. Yes, all the trees agreed. We must remind them how to be in the forest. And the elder said, I am the great giving tree. Each season I will remind them and offer them a gift. And just maybe after 1 year they will remember how to be in the forest. She said, first of all, it is the springtime. I will take all of my flowers and forest folk help me make cordial, a sweet drink that they will drink and remember the sweetness of the forest. So the fairies agreed and the elves agreed, and they picked the flowers from the elder tree. And they made great vats of cordial, and they placed them around the forest. And the next day when the people arrived, they found this sweet cordial, and they began to drink. But just the sweet cordial wasn't enough. still they didn't remember how to be in the forest. So the elder waited, and she waited for the summer. And when her branches were filled with leaves, she said to the forest folk, "Collect my leaves and make a potion and an ointment that they can put on their skin and ease their feet. It will bring great healing to their bodies and their hearts." So they did. They made a potion and an ointment, and they placed it all around the forest. And when the people came with their bags of food and drink, they found the ointment and they rubbed it on their skin and on their feet, and it soothed them. But it still wasn't enough. And the elder tree waited until the autumn, until her branches were filled with berries. And then she called all the forest folk together. She said, "Take all my berries and make a paint, and put the paint around the forest for the people to use, to create, to paint the woods." And they did. They made this paint and they put it all around the forest. And when the people came, they found the paint and they began to paint the trees. But then they began to paint themselves. They painted beautiful patterns all over their faces and their arms. And they stayed in the forest until it went dark. And when the moon came up, they danced amongst the trees. The elder knew that the people were beginning to remember, but still it wasn't enough. She waited until the winter, when all of her flowers and berries and leaves were gone. And on her old branches grew mushrooms, jelly fungus. She said to the fairy folk, "Gather the jelly fungus and make a mushroom soup so wonderful, so when they come into the woods on this cold day, they will be warmed." So the fairy folk did. And around the woods they left beautiful, steaming, warm mushroom soup. And the people came and they ate the soup. And they left. And the winter was very, very cold. And the woods were very, very still. And Mother Elder lay down her branches and rested, totally exhausted. She had spent the whole year giving to the people, reminding them of their connection with the forest. If her spell hadn't worked, then nothing would work. And as the frost covered the ground, she slept and waited. And then came the snow, and the snow melted, and she slept and waited. And then came the spring, and the snowdrops and the bluebells came up, and she waited and waited and waited. And then on one warm April morning, the trees heard something. Footsteps coming through the forest. They watched silently. And through the spruce trees came a dad and his daughter. And they walked into the open glade and they looked around. And they went to the elder tree. And both of them sat down. They rested their backs against the trunk of Mother Elder. They took in a deep breath. They listened to the sounds of the birds. They counted their breaths as they came. And they connected with the forest. And they remembered how to be in the woods. I hope you enjoyed that story. I wrote that story after travelling around a little bit this last couple of weeks and seeing the rubbish and the mess that had been left behind in the forest. as people visited. And there has been a great illness that we've all known about this last year. And people have wanted to go back into nature. But I think people have forgotten how to treat nature with respect. And this story is about the mother elder tree, who teaches us that nature is always giving. It will always provide for us, help us see our connection. We just need to remember how to be in the woods. Thanks for stopping by at Weeby Kids, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.